I feel like the older a game gets, the harder it is to decide on how you really feel about it, or I suppose how secure you feel in your gut reaction to it. I know from playing the original Metroid in the past that I simply don't like it. Like, I really don't like it. I can think of very few games that make me feel as uncomfortable as this one does, so unsure of where I am at any time, so helpless against its onslaught, so flabbergasted by so many of its decisions that at some point I enter something of a trance, a weird, existential one where I feel stuck in a never-ending void I can't escape from. That's probably not a great start, but I was quite a bit younger then, and it's not as if Metroid is just like some weird game I played one time, because in case you're new here, this game is the birthplace of not just an amazing, critically acclaimed series, but also of an entire subgenre of games that I adore. It's also quite a bit before my time, which is where that insecurity comes in. How fair have I been to this game? Have I been spoiled by what is currently over 35 years of refinement? Did the things that bothered me bother kids in the 80s? Is there a point where a game is divorced so far from its original context that it becomes too difficult to judge fairly? That's for you to decide. Those questions are all very hard. What I've actually done is decided I want to make a video about Metroids, and to do that I had to play it. So that's what I did. And after playing it as a mature adult capable of anything, I still didn't like it. But now it's like a bit more nuanced than before. I hope that's interesting enough for you. Before now, I'd kind of settled on an opinion of Metroid 1 being one of respect for the things it pioneered and gratitude for the games it would inspire, but just don't make me play it again. So now I've played it again, I actually found more to appreciate than I expected. One thing you'll notice straight away is how unforgiving the game is. You start off the game with less than a third of your health, and the first room of the game has dive-bombing bats in it. And these are some of the least vicious enemies you'll find in the first area alone. Even these tiny spiky dudes end up posing more of a challenge than they appear, from being surprisingly hard to hit, and platforming around them needing a bit of timing. It can be refreshing sometimes to play a game where nothing can be taken for granted. Rather than bugs to be squashed, every enemy can put a dent in you. There's a quick decision to be made whether it's even worth putting up a fight, and evasion being the better option. Every room is dense with stuff out to kill you, and you have to be on the ball at all times. Through this, you're brought closer together with the character on screen, a single bounty hunter on an alien planet, alone and outmatched, but determined to push through. The high difficulty also makes getting every power-up feel so much more gratifying. Just having a beam that reaches the full length of the screen feels like a blessing. Every energy tank feels like a huge weight off my chest. I really like it when a game can frame its mechanics in a way that can spark joy in the smallest of things. Compared to other games in the series, there's also a welcome sense of non-linearity. You have so many options right from the start, and there are so many viable routes to take through the game and get better and better at it, which encourages replay value. In theory. That's really more of a hypothetical positive in this case, because Metroid 1 has a huge problem of everywhere looking the goddamn same. And that's not me having a go at an old game for having old graphics. Room layouts are literally copy and pasted across the map, which led to plenty of instances of me doing a double take thinking I'd made a wrong turn. The problem gets even bigger when you remember that this is a game that involves backtracking through previously visited rooms. It's sort of a staple of the genre. But here it can lead to a ton of wasted time, because it can take a while to clock onto the fact that you've gone through the wrong chain of rooms, and now you're lost again because everywhere looks so similar to begin with, and you have no map of any kind. Not only is this just really confusing, it's also really boring to look at. A constant stream of the same sights and sounds can really put one off exploring, which is not good in a game about exploring. It gets worse when morphball bombs are introduced, and you realise that certain blocks can be broken to find new paths. Blocks that don't convey anything about being bombable and look identical to every other block surrounding it. And that's when you've unwittingly opened up a whole other can of worms. This would all be fine if it were limited to just optional secret areas, or walls that draw attention to themselves with some sort of environmental cue, But no, you will need to do a whole lot of this just to beat the game. Just bombing everything and hoping you find something. As I said before, I do enjoy the game's challenge, but that too can be undermined by the game's tendency to take the piss. It can dogpile a ton of fast-moving foes on you at once, which slows the game down to a crawl, or have enemies already spawned before you enter a room, meaning you can be greeted by a ricocheting fireball to the face, or in the game's most infamous trick, killing you during a room transition. The game's controls also don't feel quite right. Samus is able to aim left, right, and up, but not down, which would have been really helpful considering the game's obsession with long, vertical shafts. Stopping or changing direction is delayed by a weird bit of slipperiness, which can be a disaster amidst all tiny platforms. I almost never feel comfortable jumping while running during most of the platforming, as Samus's trajectory in this ball form feels really unpredictable and has led to a lot of deaths. I end up having to stop, jump, and then hold right to progress comfortably. It's perfectly playable, but it never feels comfortable either. The more demanding a game is, the more carefully designed it has to be. The mutual respect between player and designer is what makes a challenge work. It can be harder to appreciate the stuff that has been done well sometimes, when the fatigue of getting screwed over again and again sets in. When you die in Metroid 1, you're sent all the way back to the beginning of an area. I'm thankful that they opted not to make this one of those games that boots you back to the title screen with all your progress undone, as that would be particularly aggravating in this case. But I'm not thankful for the fact that you start off with 30 health, every time. One full energy tank is 99 health, so when you start out, as I said before, it's only a third of your health, no big deal, you can get that back in no time. But unfortunately, as you collect more energy tanks and have a higher total of health, you still only start with 30. And with how difficult the game is and how lengthy the journeys between safe spaces can be, most players are going to want to grind that health back before heading back out there. But the drop rate for health pickups from enemies is so low that it can take an agonizing amount of time just running up and down one room or shooting one spot over and over until you can get it all back, just to have another shot. A shot that can easily be taken further and further from your reach by getting hit by the enemies you're trying to get health from, which is very likely considering just how aggressive almost everything is. You have to be some kind of big brain and its neurons to get through this game without running into any of these problems. I had a guide open and save states handy from the start of this playthrough, so I could see the game through to the end this time. I know I'd run into the same problem as last time if I didn't, and I wanted to give myself the best possible chance to like it. And I did, no doubt, find plenty to like about it. Most games at the time would have a laser focus on gameplay, because with the limited technology available, it'd be hard to make them about anything else. One of Metroid 1's goals in development was to elicit an emotional response from its players, to create a real atmosphere that was inspired by Alien. The crazy part is that, even all these years later, it does that pretty well, at least for me. In spite of the limited visuals, Zebes really feels like a sprawling, claustrophobic cave system of a planet. The backgrounds are always pitch black, contrasting with other NES games' usual bright colour palettes. When you find a bombable surface, it feels uncomfortable to me, like you're going somewhere no person is meant to go, deeper and deeper into this maze, unsure if you'll remember how to get back out again, until you go back and look at the guide you're using again and everything's fine. And the music is really, really, really good. The title theme immediately just encapsulates the full spectrum of emotions in one go, starting from a hopeless and lonely tune that's taken over by one of perseverance before building to a heroic crescendo. It's essentially everything I love about the series in one little song. Norfair is essentially the fire level in this game, which should be harsh and dangerous sounding is instead understated and mellow. It feels like it's building to a climax that never comes, yet always feels right around the corner, which is far more unsettling. Kraid's lair is a giant maze, and the accompanying theme feels cheeky, with the waltzy rhythm rising and falling around you as if you're going round in circles and the game's having a laugh at your expense. And Ridley's lair sucks. You know what, so does Ridley and Kraid. Their fights amounted to just soaking up hits with my 6 energy tanks as I spammed morph ball bombs until they died. Don't even get me started on Mother Brain. Oh my god, it's so annoying. God, I hate these donuts and the slowdown messing with my controls. And what do I even do if I fall down on this side? Is that it? Am I just dead now? Okay. But I finally succeeded, and I beat the iconic escape sequence, meaning that I finally, for the first time in my life, beat 1986's Metroid. No matter what I think of Metroid 1 as a game you play to have fun times with, I could never say I even remotely dislike it. I can't be too upset with such an avant-garde title that would inspire some of the greatest games I've ever played. And finally, properly playing it for myself, I can appreciate all the sparks of brilliance within it. The atmosphere, the music, the feeling of growing stronger and gaining ground over a dangerous world you slowly become more familiar with. A sense of isolation and hopelessness and a fear of the unknown, but with bravery and perseverance always shining through. Some wonderful seeds were planted that day, and the fruits of their labour were right around the corner.